So for chit picks here at what 6:30, I guess, we're seeing the French without a lot of options. Vendôme can get Debulle, Grimaldi, and actually he could probably command them both under his own, but that would prevent him from putting anything else under his wing and command anyway. And then Duras. So he's got 3 of his commands that we got a big chit pull here. Now it might behoove a leader to say, hey, I should have set up Vendôme so he could command the entire infantry line, so I'm assured that attack. But I'm not convinced that attack is necessarily where I want the blow to hit. And then for my 4th, well, Burgundy's only set up so he can command Frézy, and all the rest are out of there. So basically I was set up for up to 4 commands, and I've got those 4 in command. In fact, 3 is what I ultimately wanted, was the 3 infantry commands. These cav, I'm not so sure I really want them, but there was nothing else I could do because Burgundy's taking his one. For the English, I'm playing around with things. I'm using Eugen, who's got enough range to take his entire infantry wing into command. What does that mean? Well, that means I have to be more careful with Marlborough. He's taking command of the cav wing, the cav forces here, under his wing. Remember, these wings aren't fixed for the Allies, although they are for the French, so I can kind of define them how I like. That gives me a lot of flexibility and power. Actually, I could probably create a mixed wing if I had positioned Marlborough in a better position, so that Eugen could command all of this and Marlborough all of this, and do it on just 2 limbs. But I don't terribly want to do anything. What I looked at was, well, I probably want the 2 cav units to do something, and I want the artillery, so then, well, what infantry unit do I want? Oh, hey, I can command all of these if I put Eugen in instead. Of course, to do that, I have to redefine these as being part of Marlborough's wing. Not that Marlborough really has much of a wing. He really only had Cardigan under his command, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Anyway, it's initiative time, and Marlborough's one better than Vendôme, so he's going to get a chit pick. And for my chit pick, well, I definitely want the artillery to be the one thing I have. It's only 1 gun, but it's the only thing I terribly want to have the ability to do first. The only other question would be, hey, maybe a rally action. If it was the old style game, I could get a useful rally of all of these with one of those 2 leaders, and then one of these others with the other. But with the fatigue rules, even though they don't directly apply to the cav, I feel like I still have to kind of follow the same rules with them, I guess. I don't know. That kicking off the rally might be more valuable than doing the artillery fire with just 1 gun, but I don't know. I mean, I'll probably get that artillery fire anyway. Yeah, I'm going to get a canister range fire either way. The only thing is, see, if I use Württemberg's action to rally this unit, and this is the only unit I'm really terribly worried about, I'm not really gaining a hell of a lot there either. But let's do that, because I'll get the artillery either way. And see, but now I've used up Württemberg's action, and I might have something interesting I want to do with them. Like rally again? I don't know. It's really hard to make decisions when you're in kind of a fixed defensive position like this. You don't really want initiative or actions or anything. The Buell gets the first command, and I end up just, well, this over here is Biron's. This is Biron's, so it's the equivalent of like a rock being there. It means that I'm going to get fired at by both sides of the English line. This would never happen under the others. I would have subsumed that unit under the normal game rules without the fatigue option. But instead I'm launching this attack. Plus I'm kind of beating out Grimaldi's force here, so they're gonna not be able to attack on as broad a front as I like, and thus I don't have as dense a positioning back here. Not necessarily as I would like. It's nice to leave channels for units to withdraw through, but this system doesn't allow that kind of control. You end up just massing your forces and throwing them in. All right, well, we're going to start the assault, and it's not a good position for the French. They're definitely facing a strong defensive position. We'll see how it breaks out. It doesn't give the English don't get any firepower bonus except here in the village. But they have kind of the numerical advantage with this hex being in blocked, and then also maybe some of these curves might provide them with some advantage, although it doesn't look like much. So rather than take the big shock penalty of going across this banked stream, that would be a -2 to my attempt to try to disrupt the opponent, and I'd still have to make my normal morale checks. I'm making this just a firing attack. Now, I've changed my interpretation a little bit to fit my own feeling of the rules. I've been kind of all over the place in terms of how to handle the firing as you move up to units. With a Carcassonne, every unit's involved, so to me it feels like the counterattack coming at a Carcassonne would hit every unit. And because of that, I kind of started having fire results hit not just the top unit in infantry either, but I don't think that's quite right. On the other hand, the way the rules are written, it would only affect the top unit, and you can kind of route through the unit behind it without a problem. And I didn't think that was right either, so I kind of said, well, fuck it, you know. If there's an auto route, it'll be the whole unit. I've changed that so that those auto route results, those 9s or higher that do damage and route the unit, they just leave a disordered unit behind. And the same with a normal route. Basically, the unit behind it takes a disorder result just as it would if it were in a hex behind that got routed through. And I think that actually works kind of nicely. However, I screwed up. No big shock there. I forgot to take the fatigue levels into effect on Cardigan's units. So they held a little more solidly than they probably should have. Oh well. Stout British men. You know, they've been sitting on that line not doing anything, watching this guy sit, you know, a little outside of range and taunting them and tiring their whole unit out. I don't know how reasonable that is, but I'll try to remember to bring them into play, that effect into play elsewhere. I'll just stop playing with the damn fatigue rule because I've got routes here from Debulle's unit that are, you know, interspersing into Biron's unit, and it's just impossible to keep track of. Even if I did it on paper, well, this is about the view that I get. I can't read a damn thing from there. That's about my view. I'd have to, you know, basically come up with a magnifying glass, and some of the unit names, etc., are close enough that it would be really hard to discern. Maybe I know there are little sledges that you can put counters on, usually for magnetic, but I think there were ones with non-magnetic use as well. If you were using something like that, you could use different colors for the different commands, but it's just, you know, without a distinguishment provided on the counters, it's pretty much impossible to keep the commands apart. If I were to write them all down, I would still say it would be impossible. The things just get too intermingled. So I got the Eugen counter draw, and I have no idea what I wanted to do with it. I really had no plan. It was just something to fill my counter mix with. So I pretty much just passed with his 2 units. There's nothing to rally, nothing really to do. I could turn some units, but that would fatigue them. So I don't want to do that. You know, I got a couple of pieces here that they're maybe not aligned the way I want. I don't want to stack them. There can be advantages to stacking, but there's a big disadvantage, and I feel like the defensive terrain makes up for whatever that additional weight I could put to a unit. Aldi's next. Same kind of situation. I march up and trade fire, not wanting to cross across, because again the penalty's high. You know, If I attack here, then I have to attack here to try to bridge my way across. My feeling is that I'm getting the better of the firing as it is. One thing that's kind of interesting with the fire chart, which might seem weird, when you get these automatic disorder results, they're never going to result in the auto rout or the extreme rout condition. So sometimes it's better to get a lower result, actually, which feels a little funky. I think, I don't know. I don't remember if that auto route result came from the new rules and I added it in, or if it was something else. But it feels like it may be kind of something that got added to the process a little later, whichever rule set it came from. How we finish up the limbs with Duras charging forward and pushing against these forces again, sort of mixed carousels here and here. These guys withdrew. These guys didn't have to because they were in that hex to begin with, and these guys doing a full-on charge, the mixed charge, and no results at all there. We did see some breakthrough though with some of the infantry being pushed back by the carousel. Then whoever this guy is, Natsmir, rallied his units, so he got to turn 2 of his units over. That means it's going to take him an hour to rally that entire little 4 counter force that he has. Basically, I think he's got 5 counters. 4 were disordered. Basically, my figuring by that is most leaders, are going to take most of the day to rally their units if they use the auto rallies, which really takes it from being a valuable choice, except what else can I do? I can't really I can't really perform any charges with those units. Again, I'm finding myself liking the flow of the play better with the other, with the set of rules that I was using that were somewhere in between. For whatever reason, though, this one won best best pre-Napoleonic or something like that for Charles Roberts. Maybe there was nothing else running against it that year. I have no idea. All right, now we go to the no limbs phase, and here I have to be careful. I had to make sure to flip the guys who didn't have limbs but were under Eugen. And then I have some other options here. So for example, these guys, I could make a roll to do a counterattack and increase the firepower shift there. But I probably don't want to do that. I probably want to do a rally back here or something, simply because I'm holding all the terrain. I don't want to make this an intense fight. One of the weird things about these sort of command decision type games, and Great Battles of History has this too, where, yeah, I'm being attacked, but I would rather not make rolls on the combat table, so I'm going to choose other actions even though we're engaged. It doesn't feel like it's a reasonable feeling ever with these systems. It always kind of disturbs me that you can take some of those. I'm not sure what they represent. Now we push into the 7 p.m. turn. We got some forces routing away. Some of them from just checks. Since those checks are optional, as soon as I remembered that there's a fatigue penalty, I stopped doing, say, Cardigan's troops, because honestly, they're safer facing fire. They don't necessarily have to make a rally check in that case. You can see most of the rallies probably didn't work too well, just by the amount of units routing, but only 1 unit got knocked off the board, those Prussians there. That's going to be another 5 points up to 19. These points are what win you the game in this one. It's not a matter of breaking the armies, it's a matter of those points plus the terrain that you hold. So as long as those points are held about even, I think the Anglo-Dutch Allied army is going to have a better chance of winning if they don't get shoved off the terrain. You can see there is a threat developing over here with Fresen's force pushing into play. These humongous units. But then I've got Week's command coming in to face it. So just in the nick of time as the outflanking of the cav here. Of course, these cav are in a lot of trouble because they have nowhere to go. And it's going to take me 2 picks, two chits to try to get them out of there. So they may well suffer for it, but I should at least be able to create another defensive perimeter there. And these things are moving 1 hex per turn because, you know, they're out of command. Even though they have a leader on them, that leader can't lead them. They get full movement on their first turn, I guess. Otherwise, they couldn't really come on the board. But after that, they just count as out of command units because I can't activate them with the leader. And you can tell it's a summer battle because it goes so damn late. 8:30 p.m. Yeah, it'll still be light in July. Standard time. We've got what? Yeah, this is the 7 p.m. turn. The chit picks for among the command points, the French have 4. The Anglo-Allies only have their 2. That's their worst pick. For them, I had trouble finding 2 that I wanted. I could have thrown the artillery in if I wanted, but I got to get Württemberg out of here. And I want weak moving forward. For the French, boy did I have trouble, but what it came down to is, well, gee, I only really have 4 that I could pick. Artillery again, but that artillery is back here. It's not going to do anything anymore. Well, I could pound this thing, I guess. But I took the same ones I had before running all along the attack. The questionable one was Duras, because I don't really know that I want to attack. But yeah, depending on how things come out. The French are going to have the first choice as to which one to throw in. And what do I want to ensure? To tell you the truth, I want Frezin going, because I want to hit that cav. Not particularly because I think I can, some of it I can drive. I can actually force to fight because it doesn't have anywhere to withdraw to. It's too densely packed there. It's not. There's nowhere in the rules that says basically I can do a route through with cav withdrawal. So I'm not going to allow that, and that kind of will limit the ability to get out of there. And the superiority of infantry attacking cav is revealed again. You never want to have your cav bunched up like that if they can't withdraw that way. Even if they can, they're going to be a disordered mess from it. So, but yeah, these guys just couldn't stand, and you can see a push forward now. I think I screwed up. This river is supposed to be impenetrable, and you can't even fire across it. I don't know. I don't know what the hell it is, a little lake or something maybe. But I allowed firing but not crossing, figuring, well, maybe it's at extreme range. But if there's any kind of impenetrable barrier, essentially the defender in the hex can get far enough away that you can't touch him. So that was kind of an unreasonable thing, but I also allowed them to route through it, so whatever. Otherwise they would have been cutting through here and getting all shot up. Basically I noted, whoa, let me look up that rule. What is that thing? It looks like a big old sausage or something. Yeah, so Frezin had a very, very effective strike on the cav there. Now, of course, that expends some of his effort, but we got a bunch of routed cav. All of that might end up going into the point pile, which is really what you're looking at here, is try to get the edge in that point pile in this game. All right, Grimaldi struck the center here after Weeks moved forward, and you can see he kind of busted up Argyle's forces. I just looked up the fatigue rules, and now I don't have an answer to the question I had about them. Returning fire doesn't cost you any, but I'm not sure if taking a shock. Nope, it looks like receiving a shock. I don't know, counter shock, what is that? That's not something that I'm familiar with being. I know counter charge. I don't know if counter shock, I don't think it exists in the rules. I'm assuming they mean the counter charge, but you wouldn't do that with infantry, so kind of doesn't make sense. On the other hand, receiving shock is a significant action, so I am going to charge Argyle now that he's actually been shocked with a level of fatigue for the turn, because it doesn't make sense that receiving shock wouldn't cost you. But that means I have to kind of remember he's spent his one action, he's taken his one fatigue for the turn, so he could do whatever he likes. He could do an assault on his turn, and including shock, and still not have to pay anything additional. Now, I used Duras and rallied this unit, and I moved them on top of it to help remind me that these guys are all out of command, so they get to do something during their phase. But now I'm over here on the last one, De Bulle, and he has a problem. One of his units is out here alone, separated by one of Biron's units. And again, this is the last time I play with fatigue, there's no question. So this unit is out of command as well. I have to kind of try to remember that somehow. Which is weird because I'm going to launch an assault along the lines, but these two units are going to hang back. And that concluded with very little effect. Some French routing, but and only costing them fatigue because the Cardigan is tired as hell. This is already spent, but there was no shock either. One thing, though, the reason I came back, it was a rally over here to get those cav into some kind of shape. I don't know. Maybe I should just be withdrawing them. Hard to tell. These French units that are behind the lines, I'm rolling the dice for them. If it was 50-50 or anywhere near that, that would definitely be the move to take. The reason being, they can move double speed if they're in command, but only half speed if I take the default. Now, if you're close to the enemy, you can't do that double speed stuff. But a big repositioning of this cav or this infantry into the gap there, that would change the dynamics of the battle significantly. Whereas moving them a couple of spaces forward isn't going to do much at all. So there's actually an incentive in the system for units that are out of the battle to kind of take chances and maybe stay out of the battle, as historically happened. I forgot about the reinforcements, but brought them in a little late. That's Orange and Tilly, two big cav, well, one huge amount of cav. Basically, I've given Orange the bigger force, which is slicing down here. It's a threat to the flank here. I've got to do something about that, because cav coming around like that can be very, very dangerous to the infantry. And then the second one I'm looking at more as kind of a reserve force, which I really have to get out of the way, and I may give it a command. Put them under Overkirk over here, or someone. The French routes and rallies didn't go too well. I rolled for just about everything, which is probably a mistake. You can see I got a bunch of stuff routing, some of which I don't seem to have moved as far as it should have gone. Fuck. I think this was only one hit. Probably doesn't much matter. But I took some casualties here. That was 11 points of infantry, 17 points on the cav total. I think the cav total is what I use at the end of the game. Just put these for easy sorting next time. They're all MOs. They'll be in the next battle. Doesn't look like much of a battle's happening, though. I mean, we're not seeing the kind of engagement we saw in those other battles. And to tell you the truth, the casualties at Oudenarde were fairly small. I think 6,000 for the French. Compared to the losses in those other big battles, and Malplaquet, of course, this doesn't seem to be the kind of battle. I think that what we're seeing isn't that far. We're not talking about a rout with a pursuit or anything like that here. We're talking about an engagement that is largely indecisive. I'm thinking of it, and I often forget these things. I had thought of it earlier and didn't say it, and now I'm coming back specifically because I had forgotten. With the fatigue rules, obviously, the infantry are much, much shakier. But I think they're also shakier with the rules for the Fields of Glory system modification, where you're not allowed to rally as many units. Basically, you're forced to do the rallies either in the out-of-command phase, if you can arrange out-of-command units that you want to rally, but primarily in the route and reform segment. You got disordered units, you want to rally them, you got to roll for it. Now, it kind of makes sense to me, one aspect of this, which is that the cav is easier to rally, because cav is used to getting disordered or even running away from a battle, reforming and preparing for another attack. That's not really something the infantry is as used to doing. So it kind of makes sense that the infantry is really, really shakier than the cav in this, which is a reason to dissuade me from changing the fatigue table to a bonus table for fatigue. I really don't want to see the infantry terribly stout. I do feel, though, that with the fatigue table the way it is, the infantry feels way too shaky. It just dissolves far too easily. The lines are falling apart. Is that so obvious, though? I mean, I've got pretty solid lines trading fire here for, 2 turns now. I don't know. Well, as this one starts to wind down, and yes, we still have 3 turns. That's about how long the battle's been engaged. But it's beginning to look to me like the French aren't going to break the English. They're not going to, or the Allied army. They're not going to be able to really gain control of any of the terrain objectives that they don't have control of. Maybe I should have pressed earlier. Yeah, then I would have lost earlier. So, the question now, and I've got a roll that gives me more CPs. I got 3 CPs. And the Allies only have 2, but I'm not allowed to know that. I think they're going to probably be more active. I look at this big force coming in. At this point, the question sort of is, okay, what the hell can I do that's of any worth at this point? I kind of know I'm not going to get the territorial objective. I'm not going to get the automatic victory. We kind of know that from the beginning of the scenario, although I wasn't so positive. So then what remains is, well, how can I sort of optimize my points? And it may be just trying to rally my army and stay out of the fight. That may be the best thing I can do at this point. Fall back on the defensive. It's kind of an interesting situation, really. That. I started looking, and I say, well, I'm already making it over the river line here. A little bit. A punch here might break up the center here. Duras, if I move him forward next turn, and I don't have to use him as a command for this next turn, he's in position to start to incur assaults and weakening the line here, maybe breaking up the center there a little bit and preventing, some sort of reinforcement into this area. I'm not interested in using De Biel, though. However, Biron, oh geez, am I in range of him? I can't pick Biron, I'm too far away. 2, 4, 6, 8. However, during my strategic movement, Biron does not have to be where he was. Always a factor that I have to keep in mind is that I cheat these at the beginning of the turn instead of the end of the turn. One could certainly make this kind of thinking at the end of the turn. Nothing's happened. For the Allies, they have less picks. They definitely want weak and Orange to launch the attacks over on this flank. Now, I'm also using, for the French, Freslin, because I want to keep putting pressure this way, and what the hell? I'll try to break up this giant mass here. If I can route some of those units, that whole thing is going to sort of fall apart. And now we do the quick initiative, and of course Marlborough has slight advantage, but it's not enough. The French get to choose what they want to do. Given my positions, I'll be picking Freslin. As always, the Cav has a lot of difficulty facing the infantry marching into it. They plowed through, knocked one back, routed, but this is the painful thing. 3 dead Cav units. That's going to heavily affect the score. Maldi's attack along here didn't go at all well. Crossing the river, whatever, firing across the river mainly. He's taken more hits than he gave out. That disrupted the rear end of his formation. He's going to have trouble with any kind of continuation there. One of the things I forgot about was that's a village. You know, yes, I didn't forget that's a village. I want to own it. But I forgot that's a village that's going to be hard to take. So yeah, some units routed through that whole formation. Just created a bit of chaos right in here. You'll see everything's disrupted now. For certain where I'm, not leaving holes in the line because 2 units are routing anymore, which I don't think was the intention of the rules anyway. It's more of a pain in the ass to deal with, but it looks more believable, not these big gaping holes where I once had double units. Double units are not really a great idea in general because they're easier to hit and mass target. However, they're better for shock. That doesn't really weigh anything, that doesn't really come out as terribly valuable compared to the to-hit roll on the firepower tables. So it's probably not a good idea to mass the units unless you're playing the way I am, in which case there's still something there afterwards. So possibly you're probably not going to shock if you route the unit in front of it because the unit that just routed is going to disorder the unit it ran from. But it does provide for a more stable line than we've seen in the other scenarios. I think the other scenarios were more fun to play. Playing it the way I did, it was less of an annoyance to deal with, and it was kind of neat to watch, whole segments of the line just break away. But I think this probably presents a more realistic picture. Now Week's command comes and hits Freslin, and we drove him back quite a bit there. Again, once these routes kind of resolve themselves and start going through, maybe routing more units, you start to see something where it might actually count towards the score. At this point, though, it's just taking some pressure off the flank, trying to cut these guys, just trying to smash up this unit so it's no longer able to fight. Orange's Cav wheels around Weeks and positions himself here. And, I have no idea how the Dutch pronounce orange. Just using a Frenchish pronunciation for some unknown reason. Biron strikes across here with his infantry only. The Cav I left back, I couldn't figure out anything to do with it. That actually fatigued his infantry another level. He's almost at the end. And we had a mixture. Basically, they traded units. They each lost a unit in the attack. It had hopes that Cardigan was more likely to collapse, but he has some of his really good stuff on the line there. And then he also had, that's a -2, I believe, there. Significant guards unit, unless I'm mistaken, yeah. And he has some terrain advantage, so that was a little hopeful. But with 10-sided dice, you never know. All right, now we go to the no limbs phase, and wow, I have no idea what's doing what. Bad news for the French. Cardigan got an activation and charged in, and you can see he's taking the village. Now he's got some big nasty guns facing him here for the French that if things continue they can belch out on him, but for whatever value that is. Then he got pushes as far as here on the river line, which kind of is disorienting his command, but he's got a lot more troops. He can just keep pushing into there, whereas the French force is just all routing. I made some imprudent rally checks, especially on these kind of lousy, I don't know who they are. These aren't the Hanoverians, they're kind of the orange. I don't remember which country this dark brown is. I've got little markers that tell me everything, but whatever they are, they really, really suck. And a number of them were kind of in disordered status, and I rolled their morale, and you can see what happened to them with the fatigue and +2 on their disordered side. It's just asking for it. Anyway, point-wise, big swing there. You can see decent amount of French dissolve too, basically. But the rule, of course, is lousy troops are really lousy. Ooh, this guy's got a route. I haven't taken care of him yet. He gets to get away. At some cost. I don't think, this doesn't look like I moved it a second time, although I'm not positive, but I'll move him again. Here's our point total. The English a little falling behind the French at this point. This was a very bad turn for the Anglo-Allied army in terms of points, but it looks like they might just gain this location, which will more than make up for that difference. And also I realize here, where I have Duras in play, we've got a new command, Lumley's Cav. I had to push Tilly forward in order to get them in. Duras's Cav, it's not allowed to attack these guys unless they make a successful command roll against Duras, in addition to actually activating them. So chances are we're not going to see these Cav charge forward. Remember, there's that marshy ground rule, which affects the Cav moving near the river. Anyway, just 2 more turns left, but they're getting a lot bigger and bloodier. We've got still a couple of French units that haven't done a damn thing yet. And, you know, this turn it would have been really impressive to see these guys swing into action. Instead, what we're seeing is Orange pushing forward, and I think he's got something to rally there, actually.